My name is Cassidy Monroe. I'm 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to open a boutique. Not an online shop, not a weekend side hustle, not a maybe someday dream I talked about over coffee and never acted on. I wanted a real space, a place where women could walk in after a hard day and feel seen, where dresses weren't just hung on racks, but styled with intention, where mirrors didn't judge, they reflected possibility. That dream didn't come from nowhere. I spent years working retail jobs that barely paid rent. I folded clothes for customers who never learned my name. I stayed late to help visual merchandisers rearrange displays just so I could learn how lighting changed fabric, how color told a story. I saved every extra dollar. I said no to trips, no to upgrades, no to comfort. My family never really understood it. I'm the youngest of 3. My brother Trevor is 31. My sister Amber is 29. Trevor has always been the standard. Corporate consulting, big salary, BMW. Confidence that bordered on arrogance, but somehow read as leadership to my parents. He could exaggerate, interrupt, dominate a room, and they ate it up like proof they'd done parenting right. Amber followed Trevor's lead. If he spoke, she nodded. If he laughed, she smiled. If he dismissed me, she stayed quiet. And then there was me, the one with hobbies, the one who liked sketching dresses instead of joining volleyball, the one my dad used to sigh at and say, "Cassidy, pretty things don't pay bills." Mom wasn't cruel, just gently dismissive. "That's nice," she'd say. "You'll grow out of it." I never did. After years of saving, I signed a lease on a small corner storefront in downtown Riverside. It used to be a jewelry shop, huge front windows, hardwood floors worn smooth by time, the kind of space that felt like it was waiting for something beautiful to happen. I named it Bloom and Grace. When I sent out invitations for the grand opening, I told myself not to expect too much. Still, I hoped. Against all evidence, some part of me believed this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd see me. The day before the opening, I reminded the family group chat. Trevor didn't respond. Amber sent a thumbs up emoji. My parents replied, "We'll see." Those words followed me like a shadow. I woke up at 5 a.m. the day of the opening. By 10, the boutique looked exactly the way I'd imagined it for years. Soft music, fresh flowers, dresses arranged by color gradient, champagne chilling in silver buckets. The first customers came in around 11. By 2, the store was alive. Women laughed in the fitting rooms. Compliments floated through the air. Sales rang up. Someone asked if I was hiring. I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I kept looking at the door. Every time it opened, my heart jumped. Maybe Mom, maybe Dad, maybe Trevor surprising me. No one came. By late afternoon, the crowd thinned. I checked my phone. That's when I saw the photo. Trevor, standing behind a podium, holding a crystal award. My parents beside him, beaming. Amber, smiling like she belonged there. The caption from Mom read, "So proud of you, Trevor. You've made us all so happy today." They were at his promotion ceremony. They hadn't told me. They hadn't apologized. They hadn't even texted. I closed the boutique alone. As I locked the door, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Cassidy, we need to discuss the boutique. Call me when you can." I stared at the screen. After everything, after 12 hours on my feet, after being invisible again, that was all he had to say. Not congratulations, not sorry we missed it, just a meeting. I didn't call. I cleaned instead. Folded clothes that were already perfect, put away champagne glasses no one in my family had touched. The boutique smelled like vanilla candles and new fabric, but it felt hollow. On the drive home, I replayed the family photo over and over. Trevor's smug grin, Mom's hand on his shoulder, Dad looking proud, and me, nowhere. That night, Dad texted again. "Tomorrow evening, come by the house." No warmth, no choice, just an order. And as I stared at that message, a quiet realization settled into my chest. They weren't calling to celebrate me. They were calling to put me back in my place. The next day dragged like it knew what was waiting for me. I opened Bloom & Grace that morning with a stiffness in my shoulders I couldn't shake. Customers came in, some from the day before, smiling, telling me how much they loved their dresses, but my mind kept drifting back to that text. Tomorrow evening, come by the house. By 5 o'clock, I locked up and drove across town. My parents' house looked exactly the same as it had my entire life. Red brick colonial, manicured hedges, a front door so heavy it always felt like it was closing behind you on purpose. Walking up that path, I felt 12 years old again, small, bracing myself for a lecture I hadn't asked for. Mom answered the door. "Oh, Cassidy, you're here," she said, like I was a delivery she hadn't scheduled. No hug, no "how was the opening?" Just a step aside so I could come in. Amber sat at the dining table, scrolling through her phone. Trevor was sprawled in Dad's leather chair, one ankle resting over his knee like he owned the room. He grinned when he saw me. "Well, if it isn't the fashion mogul," he said. "How's life in the dress-up business?" I ignored him and sat down. Dad came in last, holding a stack of papers. He placed them on the table with deliberate care, like evidence. "Cassidy," he said, folding his hands, "your mother and I think it's time we had an honest discussion about your boutique." The way he said boutique, slow, careful, skeptical, told me everything. "All right," I said. "What about it?" He slid one of the papers toward me. An article. "Why most small retail businesses fail within 2 years." "Statistics don't lie," he said, tapping the page. "Most boutiques go under, especially when they're run by people without proper business experience. You've put yourself in a risky position." That was it. That was the first thing he said about Bloom & Grace. No acknowledgement of the opening. No congratulations. Just failure, prepackaged and printed out. Trevor chuckled. "He's right. It's cute that you want to play store owner, but Dad's being generous giving you advice." My jaw tightened. "I had customers yesterday," I said. "Real ones. They bought things. This isn't a game." Mom sighed. The kind of sigh meant to calm a child. "We're not saying you haven't worked hard," she said, "but Trevor's promotion shows what stability looks like. A real career path." That word, real, landed hard. Amber finally looked up from her phone. "Maybe if you listened to them, you wouldn't end up broke." I looked at all of them. "So why am I here?" I asked. "What do you actually want?" Dad exchanged a glance with Mom. "We think it would be wise," he said carefully, "if Trevor helped oversee the business side of your boutique." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "He has experience with management and finance," Dad continued. "He could make sure you don't get in over your head. It would give us peace of mind." Trevor leaned forward, smile widening. "Think of it this way," he said. "You do the fun part, picking out dresses, playing stylist. I'll handle the grown-up stuff. Everyone wins. Everyone except me. You want Trevor to run my boutique," I said slowly. "Not run it," Dad corrected. "Just manage the important parts." "I don't need that," I said. "I've handled everything myself." Dad's expression hardened. "We're only trying to guide you." Trevor crossed his arms. "I'm offering help, little sister. Don't say I didn't try." Something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quietly, cleanly. "Do you even hear yourselves?" I asked. "You didn't come to my opening. You didn't support me. And now you're telling me I can't be trusted with my own business?" Mom shook her head. "You're being emotional." That was always the word they used when I stopped agreeing. "I was alone yesterday," I said. "Do you know how that felt?" "It was a scheduling conflict," Mom replied. Trevor shrugged. "You're exaggerating." Dad leaned back. "Cassidy, pride is dangerous in business." That was when I understood. This wasn't concern. This was control. "You're not—" Dad's voice dropped. "You're going to regret this." Trevor smirked. "We'll see." Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then smiled faintly as she slid it toward me. A local lifestyle blog had posted photos of Bloom & Grace. The comments were already rolling in. At the top, "Looks like someone's trying to compete with established retailers. Hope they know what they're up against." I stared at the screen. My family wasn't done with me. Not even close. I stared at that comment for a long moment. Not because it scared me. Not because I believed it, but because it confirmed something I'd been trying not to see. This wasn't just skepticism. It wasn't just doubt. They were rooting for me to fail. I slid Mom's phone back across the table and slowly looked up at my family. They were watching me, waiting for the reaction they'd seen my whole life. The one where I shrank, where I tried to explain myself better, where I asked what I could do differently to earn their approval. It didn't come. Instead, something quiet and steady settled in my chest. "You know what?" I said calmly. "I don't need your help." Dad frowned. "Cassidy, I don't need your guidance," I continued. "And I definitely don't need Trevor anywhere near my business." Trevor scoffed. "You're making this personal." "It is personal," I said, my voice steady. "You didn't show up, any of you. You celebrated him and left me alone. And now you want to tell me I'm not capable?" Mom folded her arms. "We're concerned." "No," I said. "You're uncomfortable. There's a difference." Dad's jaw tightened. "You think you know better than us?" "I know my own life better than you," I replied. Amber shifted in her chair. "You're being dramatic." I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. That's always the word you use when I stop agreeing. Dad leaned forward, voice low and controlled. "You're young. You're naive. You don't understand what you're risking." I met his eyes. "I understand exactly what I'm risking," I said. "What I don't understand is why you'd rather see me fail than succeed without Trevor's name attached." That landed. Trevor's smirk faltered just slightly. "That's not fair," Mom said. "Isn't it?" I asked. "When Trevor exaggerates, you call it confidence. When I plan carefully, you call it unrealistic. When he succeeds, it's proof of stability. When I do, it's luck or a phase." No one spoke. I stood. "I'm done having this conversation." Dad's voice hardened. "Sit down." I didn't. "You think I'll regret this," I said. "But here's what you don't understand. I already know what it's like to do things alone. I've been doing that my whole life." Trevor laughed, short, sharp. "Don't come crying when this collapses." I looked at him then. Really looked. "You don't scare me," I said quietly. "You never did." His eyes narrowed. Dad stood as well. "You're making a mistake." "Then it's mine to make," I replied. I walked out without waiting for permission. That night, I didn't cry. I paced my apartment, replaying every word, every look. Not in pain, but in clarity. Every supplier contract, every invoice, every sales record, everything about Bloom & Grace was in my name. They had no leverage. And yet, the comment on that blog post lingered in my mind. The next morning, I opened the boutique early. I didn't change the music. I didn't rearrange the displays. I worked. I reached out to local fashion bloggers I'd followed quietly for years, offered complimentary styling sessions. I emailed a photographer I'd once assisted during a retail shoot and asked if she wanted to collaborate. By noon, 2 replied yes. By the end of the week, I had 3 photo shoots scheduled, a partnership with a nearby salon, and a waiting list for personal styling appointments. I documented everything. Photos, testimonials, sales numbers. I didn't tell my family. Then, one Tuesday morning, an email popped into my inbox. Metropolitan Style Magazine. Rising Star Feature Inquiry. I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. They wanted to feature Bloom & Grace in their regional Rising Retail section. I prepared like my life depended on it. The day the editor came, the boutique glowed. I told my story honestly, not bitterly, not defensively, just truthfully. When the feature went live, the response was immediate. Comments flooded in. Shares, bookings. I sent the link to the family group chat. Bloom & Grace has been featured in Metropolitan Style. The replies came quickly. Dad, this doesn't change the risks. Mom, we're concerned about all this attention. Amber, you should still listen to them. Trevor, one article doesn't mean long-term success. I didn't respond. The following weekend, I hosted a style and sip event. The boutique was packed. And then they walked in, uninvited. Trevor, I greeted them politely. Welcome to Bloom & Grace. A longtime customer approached us. Are you family? She asked them. Yes, Trevor said. She smiled warmly. Then you should be incredibly proud. Cassidy is extraordinary. Trevor said nothing. Neither did my parents. They left early. 6 months later, Bloom & Grace expanded into the neighboring storefront. I hired 2 stylists. The business was profitable. The family group chat went quiet. Amber came by once, bought a dress, said very little. As I locked up one night, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I had built something better, something they couldn't touch. Success didn't arrive with fireworks. It came quietly, in emails, in invoices paid on time, in calendars that started filling weeks in advance. After the magazine feature, Bloom & Grace changed shape. Women didn't just wander in anymore. They came with purpose. Screenshots saved on their phones, notes written down, appointments booked days ahead. They didn't ask if I styled. They asked when I was available. I stopped being the girl with the boutique. I became the woman people trusted. Every morning I opened early. I reviewed sales reports with my coffee. I tracked which pieces moved fastest, which colors sold out first, which displays stopped people mid-step. I refined, adjusted, optimized. Everything my family said I wasn't equipped to handle, I handled. I partnered with a local photographer to create seasonal lookbooks. Not just pretty photos, but storytelling. Real women, different bodies, different ages. Clothes styled with intention, not trend-chasing desperation. The response was immediate. My inbox filled with collaboration requests, stylists, salons, event planners. A corporate HR manager reached out asking if I offered wardrobe consultations for executives. I did now. I wrote a proposal that night. When I landed the contract, I didn't celebrate. I documented it because somewhere deep down, I still knew this wasn't over. The first sign came subtly. A supplier I'd worked with for years suddenly delayed a shipment. Then another. When I followed up, the excuses were vague. Inventory issues, scheduling conflicts. Then a regular customer mentioned something odd. "Someone told me you were closing," she said casually. I didn't believe it, obviously. My stomach tightened. I asked where she'd heard that. Online, in a comment thread. Someone said the boutique was struggling financially. I smiled it off. But that night, I searched. Buried in forums and comment sections were whispers. Anonymous, carefully worded. Questions disguised as concern. Is Bloom & Grace actually stable? I heard it's over-leveraged. Cute place, but small boutiques don't last. None of it was traceable. None of it was accidental. I didn't confront my family. I didn't need to. Instead, I went quiet. I doubled down. I tightened operations, secured backup suppliers, increased margins without raising prices, negotiated better lease terms for the expansion space next door. I built a waiting list and posted it publicly. Transparency was my weapon. When the second magazine feature dropped, this one focusing on women-led small businesses, I didn't send it to the family chat. They found it anyway. Mom called me that night. "I saw the article," she said carefully. "Okay," I replied. There was a pause. "Your father is concerned." Of course he was. "You've grown very fast," she continued. "Sometimes too fast is dangerous." I smiled to myself. "I'm managing it," I said. "You don't have to do everything alone," she added. I didn't respond. A week later, Trevor showed up at the boutique. Alone. He leaned against a display rack like he was testing ownership. "Busy," he said, glancing around. "Yes," I replied, not stopping what I was doing. He watched me for a moment. "You know, I could still help." I finally looked at him. "No," I said simply. His jaw tightened. "You're still holding a grudge." "This isn't a grudge," I said. "It's a boundary." He laughed under his breath. "You really think you've won?" I met his eyes calmly. "This isn't a competition." He left without buying anything. That night, I hosted another event, smaller, curated, invitation only. Influencers, loyal clients, business owners. No family. The room buzzed with genuine energy, not spectacle, respect. A woman pulled me aside near the end. "You know," she said, "most people crumble when their families don't support them." I shrugged. Some of us get stronger. 2 days later, Bloom & Grace hit its first major milestone. 6 months profitable, consistent growth, 0 debt. I framed the report, not for display, for myself. The family group chat lit up that week, not about me, but about Trevor, a new project, a new title. The praise felt quieter now, less enthusiastic. Amber sent me a private message. "The boutique looks good," she wrote. That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement. I didn't ask for more, because by then I had already learned the most important lesson. Approval given late is still control, and I was done living under it. The night of the anniversary event, Bloom & Grace barely looked like the boutique I'd opened a year earlier. The windows glowed warm against the dark street. Inside, racks were pushed back to make room for standing displays, and a long central table lined with wine glasses and small cards describing each look. Soft music hummed through hidden speakers. The air smelled faintly of citrus, fabric, and fresh flowers. It wasn't flashy. It was intentional. Every woman who walked in felt it. They didn't browse aimlessly. They moved with purpose, touching fabrics, asking questions, recognizing the care behind every detail. This wasn't a grand opening. It was a statement. I stood near the counter, greeting guests, answering questions, smiling without forcing it. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't waiting for approval. And then, like a ripple through still water, I felt the shift. The door opened. My parents walked in first. Dad paused just inside the entrance, scanning the room. His expression faltered, not dramatically, just enough to notice. Mom followed, posture straight, eyes sharp, taking in the crowd, the energy, the obvious success. Amber trailed behind them, hands clasped awkwardly in front of her. Then Trevor stepped in last. He stopped cold. For the first time in my life, he didn't know how to fill the room. The boutique was full. Not a few people milling around full. Packed. Women laughing, phones out, stylists moving efficiently between appointments. A small line formed near the consultation area, where clients waited patiently for their turn. Trevor's mouth opened slightly, then closed. "This is a lot," he muttered. Dad cleared his throat. "Cassidy." I turned calmly. "Welcome to Bloom & Grace," I said, exactly the way I'd greeted everyone else. Mom forced a smile. "We didn't realize you were having an event." "I didn't invite family," I replied evenly. "Tonight is for clients and collaborators." The words landed cleanly. No venom, no apology. Trevor recovered first, of course. He stepped forward, hands in his pockets, that familiar smirk trying to find its place again. "Looks busy," he said. "Guess the article helped." I didn't correct him. I led them through the space, not as a daughter seeking approval, but as a business owner explaining her work. I pointed out the expansion plans, the booked-out calendar, the partnerships pinned neatly on a corkboard behind the counter. No boasting, just facts. Mom's lips pressed together. Dad nodded stiffly. Then it happened. A woman approached us, her arms full of clothing, eyes bright. "Cassidy," she said warmly, "I just wanted to say thank you. I've never felt more confident in my life than when I walk out of here." She turned to my family. "Are you related?" Trevor hesitated. Dad answered, "Yes." Her eyes widened. "Then you should be so proud. She's remarkable. This place changed how I see myself." Silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that forces reflection. Trevor shifted his weight. Dad looked away. Mom's expression cracked, just for a second. The woman smiled at me once more and walked off. I didn't look at my family. I didn't need to. They stayed for 20 minutes. Trevor tried to joke. It didn't land. Dad asked a few surface-level questions. Mom complimented a display as if decor had been the issue all along. They left without saying congratulations. I watched them go from behind the counter, feeling something unexpected, relief, because the power had shifted, and I hadn't had to say a word. The following months unfolded steadily. Bloom & Grace expanded officially into the neighboring storefront. 2 part-time stylists became full-time. The online personal shopping service launched quietly, then took off faster than I'd predicted. We were profitable, comfortable, growing. The family group chat remained active, but distant. Trevor still posted achievements. The praise was there, but thinner now, less breathless. Amber came by the boutique one afternoon alone. She didn't announce herself, just walked in, browsed quietly, and chose a dress. At the counter, she hesitated. "You did good," she said finally. I nodded. "I know." She paid and left. No apology. No conversation. I didn't chase one. That night, after closing, I stood in the expanded space and looked around. Bloom & Grace wasn't just a boutique. It was proof. Proof that I had never been incapable, just underestimated. Proof that sometimes the loudest vindication comes without shouting. Proof that success doesn't need witnesses to be real. I locked the door, turned off the lights, and smiled to myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't standing in anyone's shadow. I was exactly where I belonged. 6 months after the anniversary event, Bloom & Grace no longer felt new. It felt established. The kind of place people recommended without hesitation. The kind of boutique women drove across town for. The kind of business that didn't need defending because the numbers spoke first. The expanded storefront was fully integrated now. 2 fitting rooms on one side, styling stations on the other. My team moved through the space with confidence, greeting returning clients by name, already knowing their preferences. I trusted them. That alone felt like a victory. On paper, everything was stable. Profitable quarters, consistent demand, a waiting list that stayed full even when I tried to shorten it. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was internal. I stopped checking the family group chat before bed. I stopped bracing myself when my phone buzzed. I stopped wondering what they thought. Trevor still posted about work, promotions, conferences, strategic wins. The reactions were polite, supportive, but no longer glowing, no longer urgent. His success was expected now, not celebrated. Mine was quietly undeniable. My parents didn't offer advice anymore, not about the boutique, not about my life. When they asked how things were going, it sounded less like judgment and more like distance. They never apologized. Neither did I ask them to. Amber came by once more, months later. This time she lingered. She walked the space slowly, touching fabrics, watching clients interact with the stylists. "I didn't think you'd stick with it," she admitted, quietly near the counter. "I know," I said. She nodded, accepting that answer. She didn't say sorry. I didn't push. Some things don't need resolution to be finished. One evening, after closing, I stood alone in the boutique. The lights were dimmed, the street outside was quiet. Reflections shimmered softly in the mirrors lining the walls. I thought back to the opening day, the empty chairs, the unopened champagne, the text that said, "We need to discuss the boutique." I realized something then. They never wanted to discuss the business. They wanted to discuss control, and I had taken that away. Bloom & Grace had given me more than independence. It gave me clarity about who supported me, about who didn't, about what kind of life I was willing to build. I didn't forgive my family. I didn't need to. I simply stepped forward without them. As I locked the door that night, keys cool in my palm, I felt something I'd never felt before. Not pride. Belonging. Not to them. To myself.